dare steal from Galactus? For that, I will destroy their...
The stars are going out. One by one, brilliant suns wink into darkness as an ancient universe buckles in its final throes. Planets vaporize like dying embers. Galaxies collide and collapse, their light snuffed out as if by a cosmic hand closing around them. And at the edge of this oblivion stands a lone figure, defiant against the onrushing night. He is cloaked in the glow of the last stars, a solitary silhouette against an ocean of fire. This man, the last of his kind, refuses to bow to the dying of the light. Around him, space itself shudders and cracks, torn apart by unimaginable forces. But in his eyes burns a resolve brighter than all the faltering suns. He will not look away from the end. In the suffocating darkness, a strange hush falls. For a heartbeat, time itself seems to pause. Then comes a whisper, faint at first, then all-consuming, echoing through the void. It is not a human voice, but the voice of the cosmos itself, ancient and mournful. It calls to him by name, a name that will soon be spoken across eternity. At this final brink of existence, as reality crumbles into ash, something answers the lone man's defiance. Something stirs beyond the veil of space and time. The abyss is looking back at him. And in that instant, as the universe collapses around him, Galan of Taa is about to learn that for him, the end is only the beginning. Galan had not always been a lone soul facing down oblivion. Long before the final night, he lived under gentle skies on a paradise world known as Taa. In that bygone age, the universe still brimmed with light and life. Taa itself was a jewel of the cosmos, a world of glittering spires and tranquil gardens, where knowledge and art flourished hand in hand. Its cities of glass and light rose alongside emerald gardens, and shimmering sky bridges arced over waterways clear as crystal. Each day on Taa dawned in wonder and ended in peace. Beneath the gentle radiance of its twin suns, to walk the streets of Taa was to glimpse a utopia at the height of its glory. Though few realized it, Taa's golden age unfolded in the twilight of creation. The universe around them was in its waning days, but on Taa there was no sense of doom, only optimism and pride in all they had achieved. Under twin suns, Taa's sky shone in eternal blue, and its nights glittered with 1,000,000 friendly stars. The Taans, as they called themselves, believed their civilization might last forever. And why would they not? Their science had answered every challenge. They even learned to harness the energy of their stars and extend their lifespans. This society knew only peace and plenty. There was no enemy at the gates, no fear that their prosperity would ever end. Among this enlightened people was Galan, a man of uncommon curiosity and courage. Tall and strong-hearted, he was celebrated as a spacefarer who charted the starry realms beyond Taa. While many of his peers were content to enjoy the comforts of their perfect city, Galan felt a restless call toward the unknown. He would often voyage far from home, commanding expeditions to explore dying stars and uncharted nebulae at the edge of their galaxy. His eyes, a deep violet, held the spark of adventure and an unwavering devotion to his world and people. On Taa, Galan was both a renowned explorer and a beloved son. Yet, even in paradise, fate can whisper a warning. On a routine venture into deep space, Galan's ship detected something unexpected, a blight upon the stars. Far from Taa, an entire star system had fallen silent. Where once planets teemed with life, he found only eerie, quiet skies flooded with lethal radiation. A creeping darkness was spreading between the stars, a force invisible and deadly. Galan's heart pounded as he realized that this cosmic sickness, this radiation plague, was unlike anything his people had faced. If it had claimed distant worlds, could Taa be next? With dread gnawing at his mind, Galan raced home to Taa to sound the alarm. In the gleaming council chambers of his planet, beneath grand murals of their history, he warned the elders of what he had witnessed. A deadly tide was rising in the cosmos, he implored, one that no fortress or peace treaty could hold back. But his warnings were met with disbelief and denial. How could it be, the councillors murmured, that their splendid universe was dying? They had known of no foe mighty enough to threaten whole star systems. Some accused Galan's instruments of error. Others counseled calm, convinced that if any crisis lurked, Taa's genius would surely solve it in time. Still, Galan's pleas hung in the air, unanswered. The elders of Taa adjourned in quiet confidence, unable or unwilling to imagine that their epoch of peace could simply end. Galan was left with a harrowing certainty gnawing at his soul, a knowledge that paradise was far more fragile than anyone dared admit. And as he gazed up that evening at Taa's serene twilight sky, he could not shake the feeling that unseen catastrophe was already on its way. A shadow had fallen over the stars, and soon, even Taa's eternal suns would feel its chill. It was not long before Galan's grim prediction proved true. In the weeks that followed, subtle signs of doom became impossible to ignore. Taa's twin suns began to dim at the edges, their nourishing light turning pallid. Strange auroras of violet and sickly green danced in the night sky, cosmic radiation seeping into the solar system. Then came the sickness. At first, only a few fell ill. Astronauts recently returned from off-world missions, their skin burning with an unseen poison. But soon the affliction spread among the populace of Taa without mercy. Vibrant gardens withered to ash. Children who played under the golden sun by morning were bedridden with fever by night. Panic took hold of paradise. Hospitals overflowed with the stricken, yet none of Taa's vaunted cures could halt this strange plague. Scientists and healers worked feverishly around the clock, erecting energy shields and administering every remedy their advanced knowledge could contrive. Nothing availed. The radiation, invisible, ubiquitous, pierced all defenses. The great and the humble of Taa succumbed alike. Elders withered, children weakened, even animals in the fields fell lifeless. The streets of the Utopia fell eerily silent, save for the mournful cries of those left behind. Taa's brilliant cities dimmed as one by one. Their lights went out, each marking another life lost. On one of those dark nights, Galan found himself crouched beside a lifelong friend, watching helplessly as the man's eyes closed for the last time. The glow of the street lamps reflected in Galan's tears as he cradled his friend's limp body, feeling the warmth slip away. All the wonders of Taa's science, all his personal couraginoni of it, could save the people he loved from this merciless doom. It was a moment that would be seared into Galan's soul forever, a silent promise that if any chance remained to fight the coming dark, he would seize it. In the central forum, under a sky gone dark, the rulers of Taa finally understood the horror Galan had foreseen. Surrounded by the ill and dying, they looked to the one man who had dared warn them. Galan now stood as the last beacon of resolve amid a sea of despair. Though grief ravaged his heart, he had watched friends, colleagues, and even beloved family members fall to the plague. Galan refused to collapse under sorrow. If this truly was the end of all things, he vowed, then he would meet it head-on, fighting until his last breath. When the final day of Taa's glory arrived, only a handful of survivors remained alive in the city that once housed billions. Beneath a blood-red sky, Galan gathered those who still had strength to stand. In the shadow of a crumbling starport, he spoke to them with a voice clear and unwavering. "We will not wait for death to claim us while we cower in the dust," Galan proclaimed, his fist raised to the blood-red sky. "If this is to be our end, then by the stars, let it be on our own terms. We will take our last ship and fly it straight into the heart of that cosmic inferno. We will face the end bravely and see what lies beyond, rather than await oblivion here." For a moment, the survivors could only stare in shock at the boldness of his resolve. Galan was proposing nothing less than to ride into the apocalypse itself. But as another tremor shook the ground and the air itself tasted of ash, the people of Taa found their courage reawakening in response to his words. One by one, those brave souls stepped forward to join Galan. If this was to be the end, it would at least be their chosen end. Better to meet the destroyer of worlds face to face than to wither away in fear. Under Galan's steady gaze, dozens of men and women boarded the last great starship of Taa, strapping in for a final journey from which none expected to return. With a thunderous roar, the engines ignited. The sleek vessel climbed into the poisoned sky, leaving behind the silent cities and darkened spires of Taa. Galan stood at the helm, watching through the viewports as his beloved world receded beneath them. What had once been a vibrant blue-green planet now lay shrouded in a haze of cosmic death. His chest tightened, not only from the growing radiation seeping into the ship's hull, but from sorrow. This was goodbye. Taa, the paradise that had given birth to art and knowledge beyond measure, was now a tomb. As the starship broke free of the atmosphere and hurtled toward the heart of the dying universe, none on board could say what they hoped to find. Perhaps a miracle, perhaps simply the honor of facing the end together. Galan's hands tightened on the controls, guiding the craft into the unknown. Behind them, the once bright orb of Taa grew small, then vanished in the churning darkness. The last survivors of the last civilization steeled themselves for whatever lay ahead. In the distance, an ominous glow lit up the cosmic horizon, the swirling inferno where all matter was converging. They set their course for it, into the very jaws of doom. There was no turning back now. The starship hurtled toward the blinding cosmic vortex that spread before them, the Cosmic Cauldron where all that was once the universe now swirled in a final catastrophic embrace. Outside the hull, space was aglow with chaos. Ribbons of raw energy uncoiled across the void, and debris of shattered worlds spiraled inward like falling leaves into a bonfire. As Galan guided the ship closer to the incandescent center, the instruments on board went haywire. Radiation levels spiked off the charts. Gravitational forces pulled in every direction. In every direction, space itself rippled and boiled. It felt as though they were flying into the core of an exploding star, into the very furnace of creation itself. The hull groaned under stress and began to sear with heat despite the shields at maximum. Fear gnawed at even the bravest hearts on the ship. Some of the crew clutched their seats with white-knuckled hands. Others murmured quiet prayers to any deity listening in this forsaken end of creation. Through it all, Galan remained steadfast at the helm, eyes fixed on the cyclone of light ahead. His determination was the anchor for everyone's courage, but nothing could fully steel them for what came next. As they breached deeper into the storm, waves of radiation swept through the vessel. One by one, Galan's companions began to fall. A pilot at his side coughed and collapsed over the controls, his skin burning with eerie blue fire. A scientist in the rear let out a strangled cry as brilliance overtook her, and then she was gone, leaving only a shadow burned into the wall. Galan could do nothing but watch in anguish as his crew, the last remnant of the proud people of Taa, perished around him. Each death was sudden, a cruel flash, as the cosmic firestorm claimed them. Within minutes, the grand starship became a flying tomb filled with silent, empty seats. Galan was now the sole living being aboard, and perhaps in the entire dying universe. The lethal radiation that had slain his friends surged through him as well. Yet, strangely, it did not destroy him. Instead of searing pain, Galan felt a furnace of power ignite within his chest. His veins thrummed with energy beyond anything he had ever known. It was as if the very calamity that was unmaking reality had chosen him, filling him rather than tearing him apart. The starship's nose burst through the last veil of darkness and into the heart of the Cosmic Cauldron. All around, a churning cosmic fire blazed brighter than a million suns. Galan screamed as his ship was engulfed in white flame. For an instant, he felt his body disintegrating, every atom of his being ripped asunder. Yet in that same instant, he felt himself reborn. Suspended in a sea of blinding light, Galan sensed another presence with him, vast, sorrowful, and ancient. It spoke not in words but in a thunderous silence that filled his mind. Amid the maelstrom, a colossal figure seemed to take shape, a being formed of swirling galaxies and fiery nebulae, coalescing before Galan's fading eyes. Perhaps it was only a vision, or perhaps the very soul of the dying universe. In that blinding crucible of creation and destruction, the essence of the cosmos reached out to the last son of Taa. Galan's consciousness flickered, on the verge of extinguishing, but the presence held him firm. In a voice that was felt rather than heard, it called him by name, echoing across eternity. Galan? Trembling and awestruck, Galan mustered a final whisper into the void. "Who are you?" His words barely formed before the overwhelming voice answered, resonating in every fiber of his being. "I am the sentience of all that is ending." It sighed, each word a cosmic wind tearing through Galan's soul. "The last light of this universe. You, Galan of Taa, shall not perish. You shall become one with me, reborn as a new herald of the cosmos to come." Galan's heart thundered. He could scarcely comprehend what the voice proclaimed. Around him swirled the ghosts of dead stars and echoes of lost lives. "Why me?" he managed to cry out, half in despair, half in wonder. The cosmic presence seemed to envelop him, gentle and inexorable all at once. "Because your spirit stands unyielding at the end of time," the voice answered. "Because hope and defiance burn within you when all else has faded. Together, we shall become the bridge between what was and what will be." As those telepathic words cascaded through him, Galan felt himself changing. His mortal flesh was dissolving, fused with surging cosmic energy. Memories of his life on Taa flashed by. His mother's smile, the laughter of friends in sunlit plazas, the faces of every soul he could not save, all trailing off into the light. "What will I become?" his mind asked silently, full of dread and awe. For a moment, the cosmic voice was silent. Then it replied with a solemn finality that echoed in the dying heartbeat of the universe. "You shall become Galactus, devourer of worlds. You shall become Galactus, devourer of worlds." In the silent aftermath of that union, the Cosmic Cauldron erupted. The last spark of the old universe collapsed into a single point and then exploded outward in an unimaginable flash. An all-consuming burst of light and matter blazed forth, the Big Bang of a newborn reality. Galan's being, fused now with the cosmic sentience, was carried into this torrent of creation. In an instant, time reset and began anew. In that primordial instant, new cosmic essences flickered into existence, embodiments of eternity and death, infinity and more, the great forces that would govern this newborn reality. And amid their birth cries, one silent cocoon drifted, carrying the last remnant of a universe past. Eons seemed to pass in the blink of an eye. From the Big Bang's glare, the universe blossomed, first blazing hot and dense, then cooling as galaxies formed like islands of light in a sea of darkness. Amid this vast unfolding, something drifted quietly, untouched by the passage of ages. It was the remains of that Taa and starship, now transformed into an egg-like cocoon of cosmic metal, and at its core, cradled in an incubator of his own unconscious design, lay the being once known as Galan. He was no longer human, no longer even Ta'an. He had transcended death only to float in a state between life and oblivion. Within the sealed chamber of the vessel, Galan's essence stewed and changed over unfathomable millennia. The energies of creation swirled around and through him, remaking flesh and soul alike. In that long metamorphosis, the vestiges of his former mortality ebbed away. The man of science and hope was becoming something new, a being of unfathomable cosmic power, incubating like a chrysalis awaiting its emergence. In that dreamlike state, eons passed like moments. Sometimes the slumbering being wandered in visions. In one reverie, he walked again through the crystal gardens of Taa under golden skies, hearing the laughter of children and the whisper of wind in the trees. For a blissful instant, it was as though nothing had been lost. But then the twin suns above began to dim, and a great shadow fell over Taa. One by one, the laughter and light were extinguished, leaving Galan alone in darkness. From that darkness slithered a terrible void, the first stirrings of a hunger that gnawed at his soul. As the vision faded, the sleeper's essence trembled with that growing need, even as unimaginable power continued to build within him. Eventually, the dormant vessel found its way to the vicinity of a fledgling planet at the edge of a new galaxy. This world's inhabitants, an ancient, wise species of watchers and thinkers, were the first to detect the drifting relic. They observed the vast egg-like ship with both awe and dread, sensing the turbulent energies contained within. One such observer, an ageless watcher sworn never to interfere, dared to scan the cocoon. In doing so, he glimpsed a prophecy of terror, that if this nascent being awoke, it would possess a hunger unlike any other, one that could lay waste to countless worlds. The watcher hovered a hand over the slumbering giant, contemplating the fate of the cosmos. In that moment, he could have ended the life inside the cocoon before it fully formed, snuffed it out like a candle, and spared the universe the scourge it might become. Yet, bound by ancient vows, and perhaps a deeper intuition that this being had a purpose, the watcher stayed his hand. With sorrowful eyes, he stepped back and simply watched as the mysterious craft drifted on. He knew he might regret it for millennia to come, but some beings are not meant to be judged by ordinary morals. Some exist because the universe itself wills it. And so, the cocoon was allowed to continue its silent journey, cradling its volatile occupant until the appointed hour of awakening. For centuries more, the cosmic cocoon wandered the galaxies, its occupant stirring only faintly as metamorphosis neared completion. Deep within, in one of his few moments of hazy semi-consciousness, the nascent being performed a final act of farewell to his past. Unseen in the emptiness, he gently released the drifting corpses of his fellow Taa and survivors into space, a quiet funeral in the void for those who had dared follow him to the end. Then, in an instinctive harnessing of power, he reforged fragments of his shattered vessel around himself. A suit of magnificent armor took shape, encasing his glowing form in metal and energy. Only when this protective shell was complete did the entity relapse into stillness, as the long sleep resumed and transformation continued. Uncounted ages later, the silent incubator drifted into a fertile star system. There, it finally came to rest in orbit around a lush, green planet known as Archeopia. The Archeopians, an ancient and peace-loving people, observed the colossal starships circling their skies with equal parts wonder and apprehension. Their scientists probed it from afar, detecting unimaginable energies within, but they dared not interfere with what they feared they could not understand. And so the mysterious vessel was left undisturbed, hanging above their world like a sleeping god. Years turned to decades as Archeopia thrived under the shadow of the silent giant in the sky. But fate would not let this stalemate last forever. War came to Archeopia's star system, a ruthless armada of alien invaders bent on conquest. The night skies blazed with the fury of conflict, as Archeopia's few defense ships met the onslaught. Sleek silver craft of the Archeopians weaved desperately among the hulking black warships of the enemy, trading streaking energy beams and missiles that turned the heavens into a kaleidoscope of fire. Amid this orbital chaos, stray weapons fire lanced out wildly across the void. Some of those shots slammed into the massive silent vessel drifting above the planet. A vessel the invaders mistakenly believed to be a dormant superweapon of Archeopia. Sensing an opportunity, the alien fleet redirected its wrath, unleashing the full fury of their armaments upon the mysterious ship. Missiles and energy beams battered the cosmic cocoon, which shuddered under the unexpected assault. Cracks spiderwebbed across its surface. Plumes of brilliant cosmic energy began to vent outward. Deep inside, something ancient and powerful woke. The long hibernation had ended. In a burst of blinding light, the incubator that had carried Galan across eternity split open at last. A towering figure rose slowly from the wreckage of the cosmic vessel. He was clad in ornate armor that gleamed with the violet and crimson hues of distant galaxies, his form enormous and awe-inspiring. His face remained partly shadowed beneath a great helm crowned with twin towering ridges. But his eyes, burning white with cosmic fire, opened for the first time upon the new universe. The being who had once been Galan of Taa drew his first breath as Galactus. For a fleeting moment, Galactus remained still, surveying the scene before him. Wreckage from the space battle drifted around him like dead leaves on the wind. Far below, the planet Archeopia glimmered, unaware that its fate was about to change forever. Above, the alien warships that had attacked his incubator circled back in shock and dread at the giant, now standing in open space without need of any craft. A figure so immense that he dwarfed even their mightiest battleships. Those invaders had hoped to destroy a weapon. Instead, they had unleashed a force of nature. Galactus raised one armored hand slowly, almost inquisitively. Energy crackled along his fingertips, then arced outward in a searing wave of power. In an instant, the attacking fleet was annihilated. Dozens of warships vaporized into glittering atoms, as if they had never been. Shockwaves rippled through space, visible to the naked eye. On the surface of Archeopia, both the invaders and the native defenders paused in astonishment as the heavens lit up with the silent flare of obliterated armadas. But the cosmic giant's wrath was not sated. In awakening, the hunger had awoken within him, a ravenous void in his core that now demanded to be fed. Galactus turned his gaze downward, beyond the floating debris and wisps of dissipating energy, to the emerald world spinning below. To his cosmic senses, Archeopia was a beacon of throbbing life force, an oasis of energy in the barren desert of space. It called to him like a siren. He descended upon the planet without mercy or hesitation. Galactus, towering above like a living mountain, extended his arms over Archeopia's atmosphere. A low hum reverberated through the air as he began to draw upon the world's life energy. The skies of Archeopia darkened under his shadow. Oceans churned and evaporated, lifting in spirals of steam toward his outstretched palms. Forests withered as their vitality was ripped away. Entire cities fell silent as their inhabitants collapsed, drained of the very essence of life. The planet itself quaked in agony. From space, one could see the glow of Archeopia's life force as it streamed upward in concentric waves, coalescing into the maw of the armored titan. All across Archeopia, eyes turned skyward in terror and heartbreak. In a seaside village, a mother clutched her young child as the bright ocean beside them hissed and vanished into steam. In grand cities, crowds watched their gleaming spires darken and crumble as the life was drawn out of the very ground beneath them. Some cried out to their gods for salvation. Others simply closed their eyes and held their loved ones close, trembling as an unspeakable force swept over them. The presence above was vast and pitiless, and they could feel its hunger in their bones. In a matter of moments, the vibrant world was left a husk, a dark, smoldering sphere devoid of life, cracking apart from the trauma of its energy being siphoned. Galactus released a long, resonant exhale as if satiated momentarily. Below him, the once bountiful Archeopia crumbled into cosmic dust. A few stunned survivors from the planet managed to escape the catastrophe in spacecraft, fleeing into the stars with horror etched in their hearts. They would carry whispers of what they witnessed, a gigantic figure who had devoured their world itself. On a distant moon, the ancient watcher who had once stayed his hand now watched this devastation with heavy regret. He understood at last the weight of the choice he had made eons ago. And yet, in that sorrow, he also perceived that Galactus's coming was woven into the very fabric of this new universe. The cosmic balance had shifted, and nothing would ever be the same. Floating amid the debris and silence, Galactus surveyed the ruin he had wrought. He felt the pangs of his immeasurable hunger subside. For now, in that instant, a sliver of memory pierced his cosmic consciousness, a distant echo of the man he had been. He recalled the gentle breezes of Taa, the faces of those he loved, and the ideals he once cherished. For a brief moment, the great Galactus knew sorrow. But it was a fleeting moment. The appetite within him, the very drive that sustained his existence, was already reawakening. The deed was done. Archeopia was no more. And deep in his soul, he understood that this would not be the last time he would consume a world. Galactus cast his gaze to the stars beyond, where countless points of light beckoned in the void. He realized those lights were now his destiny, each a sun-nourishing planets that could feed the hunger eternally burning inside him. He felt neither joy nor malice in this realization, only a solemn acceptance. In the delicate tapestry of existence, he had become both a destroyer and an agent of balance, a necessary terror born from the death of a universe. Thus, the humble explorer from Taa was no more. In his place stood the devourer of worlds, Galactus, a being who transcended mortal notions of good and evil. He was a harbinger of doom to the innocent, yet a cosmic necessity in the grand design of existence. In his colossal heart echoed both the loneliness of the last survivor and the burden of infinite hunger. Galactus would walk the universe as a titan both feared and tragic, a force that extinguished life so that creation might ever renew in its wake. For a moment, the Devourer lingered amid the graveyard of that world. In a grim act of creation, he drew upon his cosmic power to fuse the shattered remnants of Archeopia into a massive floating stronghold, a world ship to be his fortress in the stars. This he named Taa II in memory of his lost home, a silent monument drifting through the void. Upon this artificial planet, Galactus would slumber between his cosmic feedings, a solitary monarch on a throne built from the ruins of worlds. In the dark void of space, Galactus turned away from the remnants of Archeopia and drifted toward the next distant star. The cosmos stretched out before him, filled with worlds yet unknown, and with them the promise of relief for his eternal hunger. This was how a single humanoid had become Galactus, born of destruction, to ensure the endless cycle of death and rebirth. And as he ventured forth into the starry expanse, a new chapter of cosmic history began, one written in the embers of dying planets and in the eternal awe and dread of those who would witness the coming of Galactus.